But now with electric cars, is it a one size fits all? Because that would be my biggest challenge. Like maybe, yes, there's a charging point not too far from where I am, but what if it doesn't fit?
A lady cycling, the norm is changing. I'd say definitely that's why I give the Gen Zs and Alphas a big up. It's changing, but we're not yet there. So ladies, like lady drivers they still struggle a little bit.
There was even like cases where the ride-sharing apps, their tires were being slashed, and like it was a huge, very big thing. Obviously, because now the price was also much lower. You know, before you take a cab somewhere, it's like 2K. And now here comes these sharing apps, and they're like, okay, just 300 bob.
So if it starts raining and I'm on a bike, will I get electrocuted?
Okay, that's a real question.
No, for real, what's that?
Because will they get electrocuted?
No, you don't. You know, if I have a coach, they come up with the battery.
Hi, and welcome to another episode of the SustainabiliTEA Podcast. I'm your host, Cindy Morioki, and we are here brewing conversations for sustainable living. Today, we are at Ikigai Riverside, which is a wellness-focused, biophilic-inspired space with over 5 locations in Nairobi. So today, I want my guests to introduce themselves. Alice, we'll start with you.
Alice Ejiofor, Head of Finance at Ebee, as well as Assistant Treasurer at EMAC. And yes, I'm here to have good conversations.
Lovely. Laura?
Hi, everyone. My name is Laura Kabaara. I'm a Key Accounts Manager at Little Cab. Happy to be here.
Okay, great. Alice, you mentioned EMAC. Could you tell us the full meaning of that abbreviation?
So EMAC in full is Electric Mobility Association of Kenya. And like the word says, it's an association that has all forms of electric vehicles, ranging from bicycles all the way to buses and hopefully planes in the future.
Would you trust an electric plane?
Yes, given all that I'm seeing in all these other spaces, definitely.
Okay. I'm still skeptical about the planes that exist today. I'm like, this defies gravity. So electric... You'd have to convince me, but maybe by the end of this conversation, you'll have me convinced.
Yes, definitely.
So both of you work in the mobility space.
Yeah.
And there's been a lot of advancement in this space over the past couple of years, and now we're moving from fuel to electric, maybe some hybrid over there in the middle.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So how can you define green and inclusive mobility?
So for me, green would be beyond just electric vehicles. Green is everything else in between that gets us to our target of reduced emissions. And it's like a range. It starts all the way from planting trees to electric mobility. And then even in electric mobility, it's how do you dispose of everything in the end? How green, sometimes there's a conversation of how green is green, but I won't venture into that today.
Yeah.
But it's more of that we can breathe better, that our city is less congested, and that everybody is included. So that green is what I envision. Yeah.
Laura, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I think just simply put, it's eco-friendly. What are we doing to basically create an ecosystem that will survive the generations to come? Yeah.
Okay. Do you have any insight as to why you think this green mobility is fast growing in cities like in Africa, in cities like Nairobi, Kigali? Do you have some insight, especially you as someone who's been sitting on a board?
So one thing is definitely Africa has a youthful population. And that means there's always going to be alternatives required. Just in terms of when you think of youth, there's trendy, there's speed, all the advantages that come with youth. And that just brings electric mobility into greater light, because then everyone is looking for not just what's trendy, although that's also very important in the space, but also what will cost less in terms of how can I spend less when I go to work? So as long as that population remains, it's always going to be important that we are going in the right direction, we're growing in the right direction. And that means they'll always ask, nobody wants to use the same things their parents used in terms of mobility, in terms of even just in life, if they did it, then it's been done before. So they want something better. So that already just means that there's going to be need for it. And then also that we are, I don't like using developing countries, we are growing countries. We are growing, not just population-wise, growing in terms of policies. Like, look at everything. Our road network is growing. It's still, there are countries that literally they almost have already fixed networks. If they have to build any more, they have to create more space, more. But we are growing, meaning that there's somewhere where there's no road network. Meaning we have a chance to do things right the next time we do things. So that in itself is why there's always going to be need for this.
I think, I'll just add to what she said. We can't ignore that, populations are increasing, and that means there are more people on the roads. So luckily, also access to education has become a better thing. So people are more conscious about what sustainability means. So people can be a bit more creative in ways that they can earn an income. For example, using e-bikes to do deliveries while someone is in school, for example. So I think that has really helped the consciousness growing and, realizing that the roads are not necessarily going to expand at the rate we need them to. But we still need to move. Yeah.
Okay, moving to the platforms like Little Cab.
Yeah.
How do you see yourselves addressing needs in the space, like from movement to deliveries of food stuff and just other goods? How do you see yourselves progressing in that area?
So for Little Cab, I'll talk about it from the business perspective in terms of we have the retail market and we have the corporate market. So the corporate market is something we've managed to tap into and really grow into in terms of how we plug in to the solutions, the transport solutions that organizations use for work-related movement. So for example, when it comes to corporate cabs, going for meetings, site visits, depending on your particular industry, we're able to facilitate that for you. When it comes to doing deliveries, we have a young, youthful population who do deliveries for different supermarkets, different pharmacies, for example. You see, so that also is able to, empower them to a certain way where they don't have to not earn a living when they may be, let's say, financing their school. So maybe they're able to go to work in the evening or maybe in the morning, depending on whatever modules they have going on in their lives.
Alice, about Ebee, how do people sign up for Ebee? What is your customer base normally?
So customer base. Also, we have different lines. We have, of course, the commuter market. And in the commuter market, it's you want a bike to get to work, you want a bike for leisure, you buy one. And then there is a delivery and logistics side. And that one is where we work with, I'd say it's segmented also within it. The first one is where we work with the different platforms. So Uber, Glovo, Dala Delivery, Letter, all the platforms you can think of. And I would say, the bicycles are ours.
Okay.
The riders come to us, and I'll explain shortly how. And then there's also other smaller businesses. Recently, we've been seeing a push for, I'm not big enough, fine, I don't have thousands of deliveries, but I'm sure I have 5 to 10 deliveries every day.
Okay.
So we've been seeing that market really growing, and people are like, just consider me, I'm tired of dealing with riders and just, how they sign up. We have a website, and there's a section for become a rider. Like from the front, you'll just see it, like from the landing page, and then it's guided. They'd ask you for a lot of information. Well, not a lot, just the basics. We want to know who you are dealing with. So of course, a PIN, an ID, are you underage, because sometimes there's a demand. When I say there's demand, there's demand. Then you fill it up on our website. Then we'll get back to you, usually within 2 weeks. Not necessarily the job. The waiting list is crazy long.
Wow.
We are at like 5,000 riders.
What?
And sometimes it's just, we don't have 5,000 bikes.
Of course.
So, then they'll get back to them. And then once they're onboarded, you're good to go.
Wow, okay.
Yeah.
Wow, 5,000 is a huge
It's a
number.
lot.
So that's how you know, the economy is not doing too good. There are no jobs, definitely not. In your respective fields, what innovations have you seen that you think, or rather, what do you think is innovative enough right now in your respective fields?
For me, I'll just say I've seen the impact that having the e-bikes has had specifically. And now we're even partnering with different organizations to now get specifically electric motorcycles.
Okay.
That will be more efficient when doing certain deliveries. Like you get food deliveries, doing them on a bike. It's not the best thing because you don't know if you're delivering to someone who has a microwave. You get the food needs to get there faster than it would on a bicycle. So maybe for like supermarkets kind of deliveries, I've seen that e-bikes work very well. Non-perishable items, that
Yes.
is. But then if it's like food deliveries, we're working to see how we can get more and more users onboarded to the electric motorcycle category.
Okay.
Well, I think for me, I would generalize it more in terms of technology. So, technology in the sense that most forms of e-bikes would have a form of tracking. So that really helps. And tracking is both ways, not just tracking where you are. There's also tracking battery life. There's tracking. There's a lot that's happening in that space. So you find battery maintenance. And like before, when you start your car is when you know if things are working or not,
Yeah.
But now you can almost always tell this bicycle has X more days to go based on how it's been used. So there's really a lot of information coming to that space. Then in terms of also just the last mile logistics element of it, it's really reliant on technology. And the more we keep getting connected in terms of connectivity, getting to even the rural areas, it really helps because then you find somebody can be operating a business in Nakuru from Nairobi. Yeah, and they're comfortable because they can see data. So they can almost tell the routes this person uses. So for me, it's that embracing technology early. And every day, I'd love to say there's one kind of thing I see, but the thing is every day, you see so many new inventions and I'm just like, wow, I'm literally waiting to, like every day, every month there's always something new. You think, oh, we've discovered this and then they go to, battery life. After battery life, it's last mile delivery, no matter how interior, you find us getting there. And that's where you get all this feedback on other things as well that help. So, at a high level.
Interesting. What you've mentioned about electric bikes and food deliveries, I think is a ping point that I've seen with some people. You've ordered food and then it takes years to come because probably you're farther from, maybe where your location is farther than, where the restaurant is. And then they send an electric bike and not a motorbike, a bicycle. So it's like it's going to take some time to reach you. And by the time it comes, the food is cold. So that is definitely,
experienced that
I
for
have
sure.
to, and it's frustrating because sometimes you're on the go. You don't have the
Exactly.
microwave and you're just like, okay, it's been 3 hours, where's the food?
Cold cuts.
And also now in terms of, you've mentioned battery health and stuff like that. So I wanted to know about charging the e-bikes.
Yeah.
How many charging ports are there? Or how does the charging go? Is it like the electric cars where you like plug it in?
Yeah,
Or do you remove the battery?
So with charging, again, not to be general, every category has its own challenges and its advantages. So for bicycles, most of them are chargeable at home. Use a normal socket, normal voltage, nothing too extra. So that makes it easily accessible.
Yeah.
And literally, if you have somewhere where you can leave something and just tell them, charge it for me for a while, that's fine. The motorcycles, it gets a bit more complicated because of the types of batteries. Those ones need charging spots. And I would say we are much better than we were a year ago.
Okay.
I don't have the particulars because also it's company based. Because what you notice is depending on the type of battery, not every battery can charge at every spot. So then depends on the model of the motorcycle that you have. And then of course now for the cars and buses, those ones are designated and much fewer. So the ease of charging, again, it depends. And that's why when you're getting a vehicle, it matters the kind of vehicle you get. You get a bicycle, you probably can charge it from home or at least charge anywhere you get because it's a 3-plug socket, normal, everything is normal. You get a motorcycle, then the dynamics get a bit more different. You start thinking where the charging spots along my way to work or, or at least in the event that I run out, do I get a second battery? Things like that, And then now with vehicles, it gets even more interesting. Most would charge at home, but then it's more of once I leave, if there's no charging port, like point or anything, then now discussions for another day.
I think it's tricky, especially with now like cars and stuff. If you see, cars run on either, like normal cars, not the electric ones. It's either you're using diesel or using petrol.
Yes.
Or maybe some LPG gas, I don't know, but very few, I guess. But now with electric cars, is it a one size fits all? Because that would be my biggest challenge. Like maybe, yes, there's a charging point not too far from where I am, but what if it doesn't fit?
So the thing about that space, and I'd say it's growing. And the thing about also growing, they're growing pains. When you start out, because companies are doing it at an individual level, it solely depends on what the company has decided. And that's also the same thing we saw in the motorcycle space. That when it started out, everybody imported or manufactured their own way. So then those synergies weren't available in the beginning. And so with cars, that's what we're hoping, that this awareness at the beginning is going to smooth that out, so that we kind of have a type C scenario for phones.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking about.
But the truth is, we're not yet there.
Yeah.
And then because businesses are doing it at an individual level, and the thing is, everyone wants something different. I don't know how to say it. If I'm going to go for an electric vehicle, I want something a bit different. I don't want something that everybody has in the market. So I would say it's still under development.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think that now is because you see how Type C has taken so long to, iPhone did it, Apple did it against their will. It was a law,
Yes,
So hopefully it becomes a law, because I'm just imagining, I have to go to designated, like Tesla, you have to go to a designated Tesla charging port.
But it does get better. When you see like European countries, at some point you start out with my charging point, and then at some point there's so many everywhere, it ceases to matter. Like some are just on poles, they don't take up as much space, because there's also a lot of education in that space. So in the beginning, as I say, green pains. When you start out, mine, it's like, think of it like school. Mine, and then at some point, trust me, it will be everywhere available. So
okay. I'm hopeful. So now that we're talking about growing pains, I want to talk about the economic development, especially when it comes to women and youth in your sectors. How is that space, seeing as, you're both women in this space?
Yes.
So you can talk from personal experience. How has it been working in this space, and what opportunities are you seeing?
Okay. So for me, I'll say I have a fun fact. For most of the riders who do the deliveries with the bikes, like 80% of them are below 25.
Okay.
And it's because we had recognized that particular gap, that people still need to, earn a living, but they need to finance certain things in their lives. Not everyone is fortunate enough to have someone to finance their education. You want to progress after uni, you're 18. So why not? Why not do something? And those guys still have energy. You're below 25. You can ride a bike. It's not that big of a challenge. So I'd say in that sector, we're normally very, very big on that, on our onboarding. And you'll find that we normally go pretty aggressive when it comes to our onboarding of riders in areas that generally have low employment rates. So we have an operations team who will literally go on the ground and just, inform people, like at least open up that space for you to get that opportunity. If you just close it off, you may not get jobs every day.
Yeah.
Of course, it's also on demand. Yeah. And so just open up that space, get onto the platform, take a trip here or there. Most companies we work with, they have like dedicated riders to do their deliveries on a daily basis. So why not just do good service so that we can put you in that sector? They get access to the e-bikes, they get places to charge and replace the batteries as well. So I think that's what we've done, especially when it comes to youth. When it comes to women, what I'll say is that we've opened up the space to accommodate both the female driver by getting them their own specific category.
Yeah.
But aside from that, we have a feature called the preferred driver feature, which can also accommodate female passengers who, let's say, have the same jobs as male passengers who work till late into the night, but they're not comfortable with a male driver. So now we give them access to also empower those women and also feel safe when traveling on using our platform.
Yeah. Okay.
For me, I'll go back to the growing pains, and because with bicycles it's interesting. There's a factor of the decision maker, the driver, and the duration. So I'll start with the decision maker. Most, again, even for us, I think I'd say ours is 85% are
Below.
below
Below
25.
25.
Okay.
And then the rest also below 35. We rarely have riders above that. So the first thing is decision makers. So the youth who's getting the bicycle most times might not afford it. So then the decision point starts from if there's a parent involved who would be like, okay, if I'm going to buy, I want the safest option. If there's an electric bicycle, they'll go for it. Also, it depends on the type of business. Is it female owned, male owned? We actually see an increased trend of different things when a lady is making the decisions in terms of, they go for something safer, something like that. So there's that decision maker. Then there is also just, when I say duration, it's more of how long are we looking at? Is it something short term? Do I want money for the holidays, or do I want money for school? Or do I want, so then you see, depending on the duration that people are going for, again, that affects what they go for. And I'm saying going for because bicycle, motorbike, there's always a craze. At the end of the day, a motorbike still gets preference. I don't like that, but we are educated. And then also there's more of cultural bias in terms of cycling. A lady cycling, the norm is changing. I'd say definitely that's why I give the Gen Zs and Alphas a big up. It's changing, but we are not yet there. So ladies, like lady drivers, they still struggle a little bit in terms of, as a lady, I can ride. And yeah, so that really goes a long way. So in terms of youth, that one is not difficult. Like I said, we have a waiting list that's yay long, It's simple things, you have your ID, and ID is more to check age. It's not that, you have to be Kenyan. It's more of, you're not underage. We're not employing someone who should be in school.
Labor laws.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then for women, we encourage that. We encourage that severely in terms of if a lady applies, they'll probably get called faster.
Okay.
Because we're trying to up our numbers, and not just up our numbers. It's literally providing employment. But be honest that even when you call them, it's one thing for them to call back, get back to you. It's more like, I was considering between this and this. There's always that degree of, will I manage? Or better yet, I have children in school, or I have simple even things to wear the washrooms, for example. Do I get, So with women, it's a lot of educating and encouraging. But the thing I like most with women is, even if they don't join themselves, they're definitely going to change the culture around them. So their sibling, their husband, will definitely go for something safer than the traditional ICE motorbike you get. So it's more of a day at a time. So yes, we'll always give a preference to young ladies. And as for the youth, that's basically all our population. And also just making it a bit affordable. Because the electric mobility space in itself is, I'd say, expensive. If I tell you to buy a bike, it's a different story. And then the question is, it's still a bicycle. You know, why all this? But then there's more that goes to it. So it's more of making sure that it's affordable at the beginning. That way it's accessible, especially to the youth. And then for women, just educating them, making them aware that it's possible.
Okay. Every time I get a female driver, I'm always like, oh my gosh,
Yes.
this is exciting.
Please encourage them. Keep at
Yes.
it. It really goes a long way.
Yeah, but I had a conversation with one, actually, one of the cab drivers. And she was just saying she did it out of necessity. Her husband passed away, her kid was in school, and she was just like, I need to make as much money as possible so, my kid can continue his education. I was like, that's really nice. It's nice that this is now an option for women too, because I can imagine there's a lot of stigma and also unsureness, like you've said. It's like, can I really do this? That's a man's job. Or women are not meant to do that. But it's nice to see that it's something that's slowly but surely changing. Is there anything specific that you guys do to foster that? Like you've said, you you prioritize the women. Is there anything else that you do to make sure that there's inclusivity?
I would say, I'd say it starts from training. Training and just awareness during the training stage, starting from all the way far back that you can do this, because with the platforms, the thing is they operate in shifts. So first things, it's more of choose something that works for you. As a lady, you know your schedule, you know your obligations. start from there. And then training, there are more programs. So you'll find at an association level, there are very many training programs geared towards women. And so what happens is sometimes the women transition into trainers themselves, and also more in terms of financing opportunities. Where there exists any, they'll definitely be given a preference. And then that education makes it easy for them to do so. And then also there's the tech side of it. So also in terms of just the operations, the managing a bike, building a bike. And we're seeing numbers growing in terms of the ladies also on the back end of it. More training, more. And interestingly enough, ladies have the patience to see a lot of things through. So you'd find all this new technology that requires a bit more of learning and everything. You will find ladies taking it up very well. And so with all these programs coming on board for training, they end up becoming the trainers to the industry. So it's both ways. It's not just from a rider and driver perspective, but also on the back end in terms of technology, growing, pushing for ideas in that space, safety, regulations as well. So I would say it's a lot of training programs. Different, some are Ebee based, but I also know the industry at an association level, a lot of training programs for the female exist.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I'll say for us, we're also very, very big on training. Like, I think that's what has given us the presence we have in the corporate space. Because, you know, when you're dealing with a group of individuals, they require a certain level of service or standard of service. So I think us training the drivers on how to do the best in terms of their service delivery is very important. Then now when we come in with the tech aspect, because we are corporate intensive, you'll find that as a female, there's a driver I like. Her car is always clean. She's always on time. We're never arguing. So now through whatever we have in terms of our tech space, those female drivers can get opportunities for more work once they do good service. Exactly. So I think having that aspect of having the tech to come in to give them that opportunity to be preferred, if a client does choose to prefer them, has really made a difference.
Okay, that's interesting. Well, it's nice. Hopefully by 2035? 2030. We'll have as close to a balance as possible in terms of gender and age. I mean, I don't know. I don't do many 40-year-olds do the bikes. I think I don't recommend. I don't think it's safe, please.
There are few, but it's also not recommended. And then duration, it goes back to the duration. How long will I do this for? Yeah, they don't envision themselves doing it for
life.
So then that's where
they want to go and build a home in their shacks. And retire.
Yes, true.
Now switching to how these platforms relate to now public transport. When ride-sharing apps first came to Kenya, there was a huge dispute with the normal taxi drivers and the normal taxi drivers and now these ride-sharing apps. And there was even like cases where the ride-sharing apps, their tires were being slashed, and like it was a huge, very big thing. Obviously, because now the price was also much lower. Before you take a cab somewhere, it's like 2K, and now here comes these sharing apps, and they're like, okay, just 300 bob. And it was obviously disastrous. So has that also been the case when it comes to electric things like electric bikes versus the conventional motorcycles? Have you seen that fight? Do I call it a fight? Yeah.
I think definitely. Like, change it's necessary, but it's difficult. You get, and then when people, because I'm speaking from the partners we work with, and I know that partners generally have the mindset of, what am I getting out of this for me to make that investment? To be honest, the consciousness is not there yet for someone to understand, I'm giving back to the environment. That's not a priority at the moment. You get, so they will use what is easier to use on the road, which is these ones that they fuel, the gas kind of cars. So I think that information sharing is still somewhat wanting, but definitely as soon as we find ways to also ensure these drivers are going to be profitable, because that is how they earn a living. So long as we can do that and also increase the infrastructure to make it easier for them to fuel, for example, by having more charging stations and whatnot, I think that uptake will be taken. Like, I think it's a very good product. It's something good. The cause is worthy. But I think it's just that mindset. Unfortunately, we live in a capitalist world.
True.
It's a fact. So at the end of the day, it's when I put it in there, what is my return of investment finance? Exactly.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, okay, for the two-wheeler space, I would refer to it as two-wheeler, and that's why I really like the fact that she's here. It's a bit different. So a bicycle has a capacity of 2. Yeah. A motorbike, same. Although, of course, people will always push the limits and
I saw
and
4
load it
people
up.
once on
Yeah.
one, and I said, my goodness,
Exactly.
this is insane.
Exactly. So when it comes to rider sharing, I wouldn't ordinarily say that's how we're doing it, but there are synergies coming up. Again, because of, remember the category I told you, they're saying, I have 5-10 orders every day. I can assure you of that one. I don't have those thousands that you need, but I have 5-10. That should account for something. So we are seeing more of somebody saying, okay, mine is in the morning. I do, let's say, milk runs in the morning. And you're so sure after the milk runs, that's it. So there's more like aggregation of trips and rides, but that's still more happening at a company level where we're having to organize that, because then there's a business here that has this, there's a business here that's having that, and then we work together. And are they safe to carry together? Are they safe to, more from that angle and less really about people, because then the average youth still wants to own their stuff. It's a bike. I want my bike. I don't want, and then they want to control their orders, their business. So there's really, that trend is still, let's say, a long way to go in terms of, unless we develop something, maybe we get a carrier or a pusher or something like that. The maximum limit, even for safety, remains 1. So it's more of the other synergies of aggregating small businesses together and making the trip cheaper. Yeah.
Okay. So what role do you see tech playing in things like last mile connectivity or like reducing congestion? So, yeah.
Okay, so I'll start for us. We are a super app.
Yeah.
Just saying. So you get access to multiple mobility solutions under one app.
Yes.
So we call that mobility as a service. So basically, through that tech aspect of them being able to develop these multiple things that you can access under one platform, it literally is the definition of convenience. You're dealing with one service provider, you already know the quality of service. And that's one thing a lot of corporates also like with us, that we don't only offer ride hailing, but you can even access charter services, you can access food. We've really grown away from being termed as a ride hailing platform to now being termed as a tech platform. Yes, so I think that's a major thing I've seen. And also, when with these things like Google Maps, where you can see the best, the kind of
easiest
intelligent route routing, I think that has also played a major role.
So for us, I would say in terms of aggregation, again, those small businesses, because the need for deliveries are there. And one good example I always say is, think of in town, there's maybe Sasa Mall or Sawa Mall. All of them are probably doing the same thing, and all of them have their different riders. And the thing is, it's always so interesting. You'll buy something, 1,000 bob? You're delivering within Nairobi and you'll still pay 300 bob. And it's here, like literally. I could literally get there. And most people, you just pay, it's okay, let's promote biashara. But tech is getting us to that space of, you're all in the same building. These are the timelines. These are, this is how we are working, and there's that aggregation that's happening. And I know many companies are working towards it. And we're slowly getting there. And I'm saying slowly because, again, the nature of business is ad hoc. There's no, it's not like they plan, you get an order now and deliver it now. It's not like I had planned for it and everything. So to that degree, I'm seeing tech really being helpful in that last mile delivery. And then also there's more of, so beyond just aggregation and apps, there's also, again, trackability of services. I sent the rider to go 2 hours ago. They were going to Kilimani. They have not gotten there. They're not picking my phone. What's the plan? I needed it now. So that trackability of where is the product, how far we're going, That is also very helpful. And then even in terms of, it extends to beyond that to now the product life itself. It's supposed to last 3 years, but the rider is on the bike every day for maybe 10, 12 hours, 10 are the ones he does on shift, not to mention the ones he's seeing his friends, he's doing his shugies, and then, expecting it to stay the same, well, to give them the maximum out of it, So again, we're seeing space, like in that space, technology is coming out a long way. There's like all these battery monitoring services that are coming up, especially for the motorcycles. You see a lot of monitoring. They can tell you, oh, you haven't used your bike for 1 week. The battery, this is how it's behaving. So again, you're seeing more space, like more happening. So definitely for me, technology it's really beyond just getting things to where they need to go to. It's more of making them cheaper, making them affordable. And then ultimately, again, you see reduced congestion. If they imagine all these things, not every cab is doing one delivery, not every. So slowly, that itself is feeding into lesser emissions, reduced traffic. Yeah.
I think that's a really good point. It's like how Jumia does it. I think even Amazon, like how they have the collective many packages, and then just one rider, one driver goes and within a certain area. We've talked about charging.
Yes.
And that for me is still a very big pain point when it comes to the electric mobility space.
Yes.
What other pain points or barriers have you guys encountered in terms of maybe infrastructure, maybe policies? Yeah.
Okay, I'll say for me, my biggest thing is the stigma. Like the lack of the consciousness just causes this stigma. And it's something that I also personally kind of struggle with. Because it's those ones of course, when you're going to propose something to someone, Google. Immediately, or even check like news or reviews. That's the first thing I would do before I purchase, right? Or before I decide to invest in that purchase. And unfortunately, it's negative news that comes up first. Okay. It's unfortunate because even like when I was just doing some research about now the podcast and everything, I'm seeing these horrific stories about Tesla.
Oh, about Tesla. Yeah,
not about us. So that's information that's out there. You get what I mean? And it does make me kind of scared, even if I know that it is a noble cause, that we do need to reduce the emissions. We need to adopt these e-mobility solutions. So I feel like that stigma for me is what I've noted to be the biggest hurdle in our drivers wanting to take up such solutions. Yeah.
Mine are definitely more. I'd start with the infrastructure. Nairobi, there are cycling lanes in some places, but those places are few. So the first thing, even with bicycles, they're like, utapitia wapi? I remember that was the first thing my mom was like, okay, yes, I understand your motivation for riding a bike. Where are you passing? So it starts from simple things as cycling lanes. And same thing even for motorbikes, in the same traffic, the motorbike is trying to pass on your left, a bicycle on your right. And the thing is, there's no cycling lane. And yes, as much as there's guidance, there's just no cycling lane. It starts from there. And then all the way to misconceptions as well. People are like, so if it starts raining and I'm on a bike, will I get electrocuted?
Okay, that's a real question.
No, for real, what's that?
Because will they get electrocuted?
No, you don't. If I have a coach, they come up like the battery. It's so there's misconceptions. Hey, Nikama, the lightning will touch me. It will leave it's so weird. So there's also again just fighting cultural bias of you won't get electrocuted. There's that, and then policies. When policies are two ways. So at the end of the day, we're saying we're reducing congestion, and then people are like, have you been to a city where it's full of tuk-tuks, bicycles, and motorbikes? Yeah. And it's like a double-edged sword. When I envision a city, do I also envision more bicycles or cars? So that balance between what is what you get. So explaining to them that, okay, fine. If the bicycle is doing deliveries for I don't know how many cars, now it becomes less congested, So there's the element of, and that's why I said we are growing. How do we want to structure it now? When we envision that green city, would you rather have more bicycles or more cars? And then how many? Because sometimes we say more bicycles and then someone is like, okay, if there are 1,000,000 bicycles, I don't know how I feel about that. So just structuring, how do you want to do that? And that starts all the way from policy. As a government, as a country, as a nation, what do you envision? Say, fine, we're going green. How do we do that? And then how do we encourage it? Because at the same time, at the end of the day, most of these electrical vehicles and just mobility solutions, what you realize is the battery accounts for 30 to 35% of the vehicle, meaning that it would have been 30 to 35% cheaper. But then now, here we are, and then someone is like, okay, when it ends midway, what do I do? Can I get a second battery? Can I get, so there's all this, how do we do it now? And then that also feeds into costing. Not everybody can afford it. What's the plan? Will it always be a lease model? Fine, we want to go green. If I can't afford it, what's the point? So all the way to financing solutions. Do we make it more affordable for this category and not to be in conflict with existing systems? Because then the other people are like, but a car gets you from point A to point B. Just because it's electric, like she said, nobody's thinking of, environment. That's like the last. So it starts all the way from policies, education systems. How do we do it? Is it something we should teach in school? So people are like, am I going to get electrocuted on a bicycle, and an electric bicycle, all the way. So that's where, again, the role of policy comes in. How do I educate the masses? But it also starts from what kind of city do I envision? And that's where we need all the policymakers to come in. What do you envision? And then from there, everything flows. What's the standard? It's not too fast, not too slow. Why a bicycle, not a motorbike? What side of the road are you on? Things like that. So yes, there's still room for growth. Like I said, growing pains.
The theme of this podcast is actually growing pains. But I do agree, especially infrastructure-wise. You've mentioned there are no bike lanes. There are also very few pedestrian paths to begin with. So it's like most of our roads are catered to for four-wheel or more vehicles. It's like your cars, your buses, your lorries, and et al. But not two-wheelers. And it can be also very frustrating. And I would expect a misconception, or like not even a misconception, maybe a concern that your applicants who want the two-wheelers get is safety. As you said, like, how many people unfortunately lose their lives on bikes because of road accidents. And they're always really horrific.
Yes,
like
horrific,
it's very
exactly.
horrific.
Yes.
And it's just unfortunate that we've not reached there yet in terms of like city planning, road infrastructure. But hopefully we'll get there, because when you go to other developed countries, established countries, countries that have been there for a while, you see that they have those systems in place. Personally, I went to study in Spain, and they are very, very big on sustainability. Very big. They have a whole green city, Barcelona specifically. I don't know about the rest. Green city plan that they want to reach by, I think, 2030 as well, if I'm not wrong. And you can see it in how they operate in terms of public transport, to even how the roads are made.
Yes.
You have electric buses.
Yes.
They prioritize electric, other electric forms of transport, so like scooters and bikes, both motorbikes and bicycles. They have their designated lanes, designated even traffic lights.
Yes.
So it's really amazing to see that we could get there if we had that concern of we need to think about the environment, we need to think about what we are doing and how it's impacting our lives in the long run. But as you said, capitalism, it's really winning.
Yeah.
But we're getting there. To be honest, I also keep saying something else. The thing about growing pain, think of it like a child. You still have to crawl, you have to walk, you have to... The thing is, we don't expect you to crawl for forever. So that's the thing. And having these discussions means that we're already we are somewhere. Because it would have been sad if now 10 years from now it's only like, oh, now the space has been there, because that's what kind of happened with the roads. We were driving cars and then suddenly it was, okay, now we want a green city. But then the beauty of growing and starting early is that now we set them now.
Yeah.
What cities do we envision? And the penetration has been good, but it has been slow, but that means we have time.
Yeah.
We are sorting everything. The good thing, nothing is sorted in isolation. The roads are coming up, financing is coming up, the laws are coming up, and then boom, everything is forming together and you get like a whole baby.
I really like your mindset. You're so
Yeah,
optimistic.
so
Like,
optimistic. I love
you're
it.
so Normally, I'm just like,
I love
I'm
it.
tired. You're just like, no, it's okay. We're getting that.
We
I think
are,
I need you constantly in my life to like cheer me up when
for
things
sure.
are bogging me down. You're just like, you got this.
Yeah, we have. And the thing is, I keep saying, like, just one last thing is comparing, the word you used is established.
Yeah.
Some people have had 150 years. They've had, they started studying these things way back
Like
when.
decades ago,
Exactly.
yeah.
So now that we're slowly becoming aware, let's take it in strides. And then, like I always say, get solutions for the African continent, you get, so that we're not just copy-pasting PEP. And then now that we know, oh, the bicycles have no lanes, how do we do it? Can we do it differently? Can we... Yes, they have lanes, but then how would we like our lanes? How do we structure it? How do we? So it's a journey, a beautiful journey.
It's a beautiful journey.
Yeah.
But you're right in the African context. I've seen countries like Rwanda, they are very, very big on, the green, going green.
Yes.
They actually have a law that's coming up that you can't have these, how us we import cars from Sijui what here.
Yes.
They don't want that.
Yes.
It's like you get either a hybrid car or an electric car. They don't want to see fuel only cars or whatever, diesel cars only on the
Yes.
road. They're like it has to be green to some extent.
Yes.
So even their public transport is changing as well. They're going for the e-buses.
Yes.
Even they're very big on motorcycles as well. They have a very big motorcycle culture there.
Yes.
And they're trying to also convert them into now e-bikes, which I find really, really cool. But I mean, definitely it's something that can happen. You see?
Yes.
So
It can.
it can.
Yeah.
So it's good to
And the
see.
thing about EVs, if you notice, nobody's buying a second-hand EV.
Yeah, that's so true.
So if we go green,
Yeah.
slowly, what you eradicate the concept of, oh yeah, mine is just 4 years out, So the more electric we go, I strongly believe it will be a thing of the past that, oh, my car has been, and we will cross that bridge when we get there. Don't get me wrong. Sooner or later, there's going to be a second-hand market for EVs. But then again, because of the battery life and other components, sometimes it's easier to get something new.
True. And I also don't think like when you buy a new car, it's very hard for you to... It takes long before you start thinking about disposing it. You get it? Like, this car cost a lot.
Yes.
Because, I mean, it is an investment to buy a car like 0 mileage,
Yes.
fresh from the showroom. So I think it's also good for the long term because sometimes you buy a second-hand car and then people are like, it's giving me 1, 2, 3, 4 problems. I'm just going to go and then buy another second-hand car and then another cycle just continues and it's just... also not very good for the
Redundant, yeah.
environment either. I mean, they say secondhand is good repurposing, but not all the time. I don't know. Electric things, or I don't know about all that.
Like
yeah.
appliances.
Appliance. Yeah, I mean,
But think about it. When was the last time you bought a second-hand appliance?
honestly,
Yeah.
never.
Exactly. So that's the
here.
beauty of EV, and that's why I say it. Now we can write our story. Now is the time to do things the way we want it, and it's a matter of, again, duration, speed. How fast do we do it? How do we? And even phones. When was the last time you bought a second-hand phone?
Yeah, there's a market for it though.
There is. Don't get me wrong.
But then you always have like some
Yeah.
problems. Like you see the
Yeah.
battery is draining really quickly.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Or it's
And
not
even-
charging. Or
And even
yeah.
you're fresh from high school person would still be like, I'd rather changisha
Yeah.
and get a new one than take a second one. You get a second-hand phone. So again, it's time to write the new narrative. We have, it's a clean canvas.
It is a clean canvas.
true.
Are there any partners that you have that have kind of helped you bridge a gap with the barriers that you're facing?
I would say all our partners. And because the thing is, going green is a journey that you can't do alone. It's partners here and there, from training partners to the apps. Because the thing is, like she said, most apps would have a section for electric, and you'd see electric is slightly cheaper than
Yeah.
the
normal.
traditional ICE vehicles. And I feel like that already is changing the norm because people, everyone is like, I saw it was 100, but then I was on 50. They're like, Nika ni tumie. And from there, a whole other journey starts. They get
Yeah.
comfortable with it. They're like, Nini. They like how it's so quiet. You don't hear it. No hooting, honking.
That's true.
So it's, and that's why I say all our partners, nobody is left behind. From that one, like from the person, from the app, how they feature the app, all the way to charging points. These days, you'd find a petrol station would comfortably start setting up a charging point, And everybody's really doing their part in this journey. And to that degree, I'm grateful. You find the association as well. The trainings are geared now. When they're studying motor vehicles, everything, they do both ICE and electric. The question is coming up more often. I'm doing electrical engineering. Gone are the days that it was only for appliances. Now it's more like there's an electric mobility space. Do you think I can be of help? The civil engineer is also asking, where do we put the charging booth? So that it doesn't get water. It doesn't. And to be honest, everyone is pushing. And that's why I said it's a journey. And some more than others because of the importance and the urgency and maybe also their global presence. But also, I'm telling you, everybody is pushing in their own small way. So all our partners, from all the apps we work with to all the training partners, to all the education institutions that are really trying and saying, what do you need? What kind of engineer do you need? We don't want just a traditional engineer. So everybody is really coming along.
Nice.
Yes.
Do you see any?
Yes, for sure. It's actually something we have a target set for this year. We want to partner. There's a partner we're working with where basically the riders will have access to an electric motorcycle. And then we have a financier. So that's how we've figured out how to deal with the financing bit. So we just provide that ecosystem where now the financier just gets directly from the monies that the rider earns on a daily. It's easier for the rider because you'll find it's maybe like 150 shillings a day. That's manageable. But then you pay it off for a certain period.
Yes.
So that's something we're looking at launching this year specifically.
Oh, that's cool. That also
Yeah.
would bring up more opportunities for more jobs. Because
Exactly.
definitely price is always
A
the biggest
factor.
factor when it comes to like, am I going to buy the
And
electric
upfront,
bike?
all the...
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
a stressful thing, yeah.
Oh, okay. Now let's move on to policies. You had mentioned policies are a barrier.
Yes. Yes.
And especially as an EMAC board member.
Okay.
Tell us.
They call it governing council, but yeah.
Okay, governing council.
Okay, yes.
What policies are there? Or actually, this is a two-part question.
Okay.
What policies are there that are really pushing for this e-mobility agenda?
Okay.
And where do you think we are lacking?
Okay. So I'd start with policies existed, but they were always for traditional ICE vehicles, the normal vehicles, like fuel-based vehicles. And so there have been some new policies. One of them has been the zero rating of electric vehicle products. So whether it's a motorbike, a car, you'll find they are zero rated. And what that did, that removal of the VAT component has made it more affordable. So if you look at the uptick in 2024, for example, it's like you can literally see a steep uptick from like 100 and something the year before it went all the way to 5,294 in 2024. And you see it's like exponential. So that zero rating went a long way. And then also in the industry, there are assemblers, there are manufacturers, and different categories. So the thing is, the manufacturer, of course, it's best to be a manufacturer. But then again, it's more of what parts, or when do we call you a manufacturer? So the industry has designated certain things. So you find for manufacturers, for example, they're able to even import at lower costs. Yeah. So that was passed in the fiscal year 2023. Then 2024, we fought the Finance Act and everything, the bill, and then it remained. So we've kind of managed that. So that has been helpful. But also there are strides to go, like there are milestones to go in terms of importing. So it's okay if I sell at zero rated. So you go to the supermarket, you buy it at zero rated, great for you. But then here's the thing, as an importer or even as a manufacturer, the parts that I'm buying locally, those ones are not zero rated. Yeah, I'm still paying VAT on them. So the cost of manufacturing and everything is still very expensive. Same thing to infrastructure charging. Like in charging infrastructure, what you find is you hit a certain limit, 15,000 kilowatts per hour, and then it's capped. After that, there's a different price to it. So here I am saying I'm encouraging mobility, but then if I have like 100 riders charging at the same time, boom, there's a cap.
Yeah, okay.
And then also just that Nairobi, there are residential areas, industrial areas. There's a whole concept of charging and, rates for the different places. And then slowly pushing you to industry level because they're like, 100 riders at the same time, that's more than an industry, that's more than... So all that, so you see there's still room to grow in terms of charging infrastructure and even in terms of standards. So one thing nobody has been addressing, everybody has been bringing their own EV. And standards existed for, motor vehicles, what's an engine size, what's a what. You come all the way to EVs. At the moment, it's more of people are trying at an individual capacity in terms of company level to make it as safe as possible, but nothing that, like, nobody has come up to say this is the standard, this is at least for EVs specifically. So most things would be bicycle, like that. And then even in terms of the taxman, they still don't have a section for electric bicycles. You're either a bicycle, traditional bicycle, or a motorbike. And then now an electric bicycle is in between and it has a motor, and then they're like, okay, how do we tax it? So just even defining basic things. So all that is happening, and I think that's why you're seeing electric, you're seeing EMAC, the likes of CAM as well, Kenya Association of Manufacturers, and they're all pushing at different angles. So it's a journey. We are hoping that this year we get through, because every year, and that's the thing. The thing I like about this journey, every year something is changing. A few years back, there was nothing. Now, they were zero rated. So slowly. And then also there's pushback, remember, from the greater industry. Because they're like, but as motor vehicles, we've supported you for years. We've been paying our taxes faithfully, our import duty. And many can attest, the landed cost versus what you actually end up paying by the time you get your number plate, it's night and day. And so for them, it's like, okay, fine. Thank you for promoting electric mobility. But we've been here. What do we get? So there's pushback from all angles. And so it's really coming up with policies is interesting. It has to be balanced, equitable, fair, and ensuring that the people you hope it benefits, those are the people you get to. Yeah.
Okay. Laura, do you have any insights on the policies and how it's affected your industry?
So I would say, I think she's highlighted the main things because that already needs to be defined before you define the role of EV on a ride-hailing platform. So I feel like it's really important for us to cross that hurdle, of getting all this defined as manufacturers, as importers, assemblers, so that now when it comes to ride-hailing, we can figure out how to accommodate them adequately in that particular space.
Do you see, or rather, could you speak on the importance of collaboration between all these bodies that you've mentioned? So from manufacturers to city planners to policy makers.
Yes.
Yeah.
Definitely, it's a challenge we see. So let's say now you have an electric vehicle, yeah? So there's the standards are set by KEBS. There's NTSA that does road safety and regulation. There is KENHA, Network Association. So when it comes to charging infrastructure, KENHA is like, hey, don't touch my road. Why are you putting a charging infrastructure? And so it gets interesting even in policies, because then you think, you think we're addressing EV. And then you have a ton of regulators coming from all sides. And I think that's where the beauty of an association is, because one thing is you get a buy-in from all these bodies and you tell them this is where we are. When I'm riding my bicycle, my rider doesn't care for this is KENHA, this is NTSA, this is, them, they have their license, I'm good to go. How do we make it easy for us to do this? And that's where you'll find in an association, there's a legal team, there's a tax team, and you get access to all these things that you ordinarily as a company would struggle to have. But definitely, I feel like even going forward, one thing I'm learning, at least from a policy component, is how do we also streamline this? Because one license is different from another one. Same thing to us as companies. A license especially for companies that do two-wheeler bicycles and everything, they struggle. Here, they're not regulated. Here, they're regulated by a different regulator from this other one. And so slowly we are getting to that push of how do we get everything together? And I'd say with all these associations that are coming up, well, not really coming up. There are not that many as well. They are there to push different elements. Yeah. So Kenya Association of Manufacturers would push from, this guy is a manufacturer. How can you make their lives better? And the electric mobility will be like, this person is electric. How do we integrate all these systems to make it happen? Yeah. So it's a challenge we are growing into. We are growing into, but I think we're doing well in the sense that also the regulators have been helpful. Honestly, they're also pushing for this. It's an agenda that the government is also fighting for. And so we see more collaboration. Unlike before, where it's like, apply and then in 2 weeks we'll get back to you. Now you have a contact person. Now you can tell them, can we write up something? And like I said, because we're growing, everyone is setting the space. And it's interesting when you're at this ground level because everyone is like, okay, do you think you can do something similar for road networks and charging infrastructure? And then another one is like, okay, what about electricity? So then this is just the right time to do everything at a go. The only thing is, again, speed and resources. Getting it all done. The people are the same, the companies are the same. They're trying to sell here, they're trying to establish policies here. So getting something that works. Yeah.
Okay. So it's a journey for sure.
It's a journey.
So now let's say we're in the future. Let's
Yes.
imagine
Okay.
2030, 2035.
Right. Yes.
What does a thriving, inclusive, tech-enabled mobility space look like?
Do you understand?
Firstly, I've seen sometimes the challenge in tech. It's that as Kenyan organizations, we maybe we want to save as much as we can. So I think like also CEOs and founders of companies need to be willing to make that investment because it's really, really important for them to be able to make that investment so that we can come up with solutions that are actually workable. So I think I would like to see a lot of that collaboration because even when she was mentioning that, I was thinking there's a time we were developing a motor insurance product for our drivers with one of our clients. And we realized they had not even tapped into that vertical for electric vehicle insurance. So you see, had we not brought that up, it's like even them, they're missing out on a certain product they can bring in the market. So I think that collaboration is really what I want to see. And also the raised awareness. Yes. And also I would like to see more hybrid vehicles on the road for sure.
You still want the fuel? It has to be hybrid.
Just to start, to be
Alice is
easy
here
into
to push
it.
us to
We ease
be
into
fully
it.
electric.
Exactly.
She wants us to be fully
Fully electric, but we are growing.
We have to start somewhere. As you said,
Yes.
it's a
It's a
growing
journey.
space. It's a journey.
Yeah.
Oh, for me, what would I like to see? First thing is the ease of access for everyone. And I say that because you'll find in countries like the Netherlands, they have a mini riding test at 8 years so that you can start riding your bicycle to school
Okay.
in higher grades. Yes.
okay.
So they take themselves to school on a bicycle. So it doesn't have to be the bus that you wake up at 5, you stay closer to home, you take your bicycle to school, So the first thing is the ease of access. Everybody. Your child has one, your grandma has one, in whatever version. One can have a scooter, another one can have a bicycle,
Yeah,
another
because I was
can
like,
have...
grandma on a bike.
Yeah, exactly. And, another can have their vehicle. So the first thing is everyone having like the ease of access to it. That's the first thing. The second thing is definitely more affordable solutions. And 3, an infrastructure that works. Because it's one thing when everyone has everything, but again, would you release your child in Nairobi to ride?
Exactly.
You're 10-year-old,
Yeah.
how safe is it? Have we gotten there? So how do we get there? And lastly, more collaboration between the public transport system, the ride-hailing apps, the electrical components, so that you find, again in the Netherlands, their train, their bicycles, their cars, they're all using the exact same pathway. So, sometimes when you think electric, everyone is like, okay, then I want a lane for this, I want a lane for this. But there can be a synergy between everything. It's the same road, the same what, it's well timed, the traffic lights work, the what works. And for that to work, that goes all the way back all the bodies are working together. You know, from NTSA, Kenha, you know, everyone is working together, and then the systems are working. So those working systems, the ease of access to everyone and affordable solutions, so that it's not something for, hey, it's expensive. That for me would be a beautiful future.
I agree. I think that would be amazing. As we come to a close on this conversation, I want to ask you both to share one thing you think, like one inspiration, one point that you think would move the needle when it comes to EV. Or, yeah, exactly. Actually, yeah, that's it. Laura, I'd like you to start.
Hey, for me, I'd say it's something that we are actually working on as Little. We want to build a super app that can basically give mobility, all kinds of mobility solutions around Africa. You know, like the point is we need to make Africa great. You know what I mean? So we need to make it like it's accessible. It's not something that's luxurious. It's not a luxury item. It's something that's a necessity for us to ensure that our kids, our future generations have a good life. So that's what we are intentionally doing as Little, to build a super app so that you can access multiple mobility solutions, electric, the normal, eventually get fully electric. Don't get me wrong. But yes, that's what our vision is.
Nice.
Yeah.
As our vision I'll even start from our vision statements. It's to adopt electric light vehicles on the road, and 1 million of those to be EVs by 40 or 2035. But beyond that, I think I'll finish off with a story. So we have this delivery logistics, and one misconception is this last mile delivery is for poor people. I don't know how to say hustlers. When you think of your youth, everyone is thinking of people from Kabaara, from, which shouldn't also be the case. But an interesting story, I will disclose their name, but I won't disclose their name, but they were in Strath, and they applied kawaida, everything. So you can see, the well-dressed, he's a scholarship student though, so good command of English, everything. He joins, and I'm thinking, here we are, duration. You remember that duration story I told you? I'm like, okay.
He's going to be here for a short time.
And first week, he's fumbling, trying, electric mobility still needs a bit of training. You don't just get on an electric bicycle and then, like people are like, will I get shocked? Will I? There are all those questions. So he starts, and he's diligent. Month 1, month 2. So now you're talking with this guy, hey, what's your motivation? It's like, to be honest, I'm short on school fees. And housing money, like sustaining myself. So my plan is, if I'm able to diligently work for this 4 months long holiday break, I'll be able to do it. So he goes on to perform. And I'm saying performing because the earnings, people ask you what are the average earnings. And most times are not, I'd be honest, they're maybe like between 3,000 to 5,000 weekly. Yeah, which is not bad, but it can be low. But there are also top performers. You'll find people at 16,000, 20,000. So he's doing so well, and it's consistent. And you can see, hey, this person has a plan. He has a plan. Always on time shift. Because the other thing I keep telling this generation, be consistent. Be consistent so that you can see the benefits of what you're doing. 2 months in, he's like, I've achieved my target for housing for the next sem.
Wow.
Because, it's SQ living. It's like that one done. Now, school fees. Like that. And let me tell you, by the time he finished those 4 months, he made his goal. He made his goal. And I think for me, honestly, I was just like, wow, I wish I was that determined when I was in school. When I thought of money, I thought of, weekend activities, something that can earn me quick money, and any help. Don't get me wrong, all those worked. But just in a newer way of doing things, that for me is a win in itself, because it's the same way we see people doing biasharas. They are young. They're like, no, I'm going to lease a bike. I know what I'm going to do with it. I'm going to do this biashara, this biashara, this biashara. And so for me, electric mobility is beyond just an app. Yeah. I love technology. I love battery monitoring. But like I said, the end person doesn't care for all those things. What they want is a solution that works and that gives me money in my pocket, that I'm better off for it. Yeah. So the thing I keep telling people is, try it out. Try it out. And then be diligent as you're trying it out. Don't do a bicycle for a few hours and then you don't see anything.
Yeah.
Go full throttle. Try it out. Be diligent. Get something that works. And it'll, it'll work for you. And so for me, all these businesses, all these economic empowerment. Honestly, that for me is usually the win-win in all this. Beyond all the apps we're doing, beyond the trainings we're doing, beyond it's in a business saying, I am fully electric and guess what? I get it done. That is always a win-win for me.
I love that. Well, thank you, ladies, so much for coming onto this set. I've had a lovely time having this conversation with you both. Please let our audience know where they can find you, maybe on LinkedIn, how they can reach you, maybe via email. Yes.
All right. You can find me on LinkedIn as Laura Kabaara. That's LauraKabaara. Or you can reach me on my email, lkabaara@gmail.com.
First, I'll start with our offices. In terms of when you're looking for an electric bicycle, you will find us at Kilimani, Chaka Road. And then for my contacts, Alice Ejiofor on LinkedIn. I'm thinking Alice is ordinary, so I'd go with Ejiofor, Ejiofor on LinkedIn. And alice.finance@ebee.africa for my
Lovely.
email.
Well, thank you guys for tuning into this episode. It's been lovely. Remember to subscribe, like, comment, share, everything. And we'll catch you in the next episode. Bye.
Bye.